Hello, everyone, and welcome to 180 Degrees of Impact. My name is Matt Scott, and today I am really grateful to be joined by Taylor Conroy, who's sitting there calm, cool, collected, and I feel like it's going to be a great conversation today.
Well, who knows, Matt? I could totally blow it.
Yeah,
And no, thanks for having me, man. I'm impressed with not only with your 180 degrees poster in the background, which is pretty sick, but also your mission
Thank
and
you.
also your style. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All of that. And I feel like I could probably just end now because
Because you're feeling good.
I'm feeling great.
Matt, your emotional bucket is full.
My emotional bucket is full, and I don't think I can handle the rest of this conversation. But I'm going to try to soldier on. So we'll see if I could hang in there. But just as we get started, before we have too much fun, I'd love if you could introduce yourself and tell the 180 Degrees of Impact audience who you are. How do you introduce yourself to people?
Sure. You know what? For me, it really depends on the audience. Like if I said I really love trying new things and embracing things really fully. Someone would call it like an extremist kind of tendency.
Yeah.
But how old are you, Matt?
26.
26. So back when I was in my early 20s, I was a firefighter. I loved firefighting. I loved that my job was quote unquote like saving people, helping people that were in need. I loved that. And then I picked up selling real estate on the side and did really well in real estate. I made a couple $1 million in my mid 20s and decided that after doing that, I was like, wow, life is pretty amazing. And I need to be doing a lot more because what I'm doing is fine. It's good for me, but it wasn't the most fulfilling, let's say, for lack of better terms, and decided I'd switch gears and jump into philanthropy and started a company called Change Heroes. And we raised about $5 million and built funded about 500 schools and libraries and water projects all over the world, which I loved. And then now I'm really focused on helping other people get their messages out in a big way. And I do that via helping people get TEDx talks. So that's kind of a colored kind of background, but that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think one thing, I didn't mention this to you before the interview, but like looking at at your different talks and even just looking at everything you have out there, and I'm saying this without exaggeration, you seem like you might be the most interesting man in the world between having career as a firefighter, as a real estate mogul, I'll say, building schools overseas, helping people with talks. There's a lot of other stuff in there that I missed, but I'm really amazed and hoping to learn from you about like how you what made you who you are. So hopefully people could learn from all that because you've done a lot in the short amount of time, at least in my estimation.
Thanks, man. And I think it'd be really valuable too to jump into the hard parts, because that's like the highlight reel, and I love it. And it's nice, but it's like, all that comes from me just making a whole bunch of mistakes really, really fast. And the business that I have now really came from almost like desperation in a way of like going, look, I've tried to dictate to life what's going to happen in my life since I was 20. I was like, I'd have the vision boards and like, this is what I want to bring into my life and this is how much I want to make and all that kind of stuff. And that stuff is well and good and it's amazing and it works and all that kind of stuff. And I also had a company go bankrupt. I had another company close down just because I guess in essence kind of went bankrupt. I had another company just not work, and sure, real estate was successful. Firefighting was great. And I've had some like really challenging times in my adult life, some like super dark moments of, oh shit, was it all a fluke? Was all of my successes a fluke? And am I destined to be a failure? And when you have a company go down, it's so heartbreaking, especially when it's something in the social good realm that is like, it was my heart and soul, right? But so yeah, I'd love to dive into all of it and make sure that, I don't know, I really love a quote by a guy named Osho that says, a tree's branches will only reach heaven if its roots reach hell.
Yeah.
And I really like that, like the dark and the light, right? Like the up and the down, because it's all part of everything, and no matter what someone's going through that's listening to this right now, whether they're going through anxiety or depression, which is so prevalent right now, or they're going through some like high times, awesome. Life is all about, it's like the rainbow. It's not black and white. It's everything, you know? So yeah, I'd love to dive into all of it with you.
Yeah, awesome. And I love that you started there, because I think one thing I recently heard was a quote from someone I was having a conversation with was talking about Dr. Dre, and he has a song that he, I think, released in like 2000 called What's the Difference? And it's basically the message that ties in with kind of like with that idea of, you know, getting feedback. Is his thought was like, what's the difference? I don't care what you think. But honestly, you bring up the point that like it's a lot easier said than done to brush off a lot of the things that are pretty difficult and hurtful, especially like just hearing about your experience. And like I feel like if this were, I feel like I need to like link out to a bunch of different talks that you've done, just to give people other reference if they want to hear more from you about all of it. But you know, I want to start there. Like, what have the struggles been to creating what you have now, and to being where you are now?
Well, you know, I think it's funny you mentioned not caring what people think. I think that's, even right now, it's still, that's my work right now. That's my personal work. You know, I think we as humans, we've got the work that we're working on in the world. You're working on your podcast, right? And you're working on your, you know, getting wonderful message out into the world. That's your kind of your external purpose at the moment. And you might have some inner work that you've got going on. I don't know what it is, but I know mine is caring less and less what people think. You know, I've spoken in person in front of about 100,000 people, yet I can still be crippled with caring what people think. You know, and that has, looking back at my life, I have zero regrets. And I do also know that the earlier that we as humans can get over caring so much about what people think, the sooner we can live our purpose, the sooner we can live our dharma, whatever you want to call it, the sooner that we can get out there and just live fully us. You know, someone asked me the other day, like, you know, who's your hero? And I said, my hero is the guy who's on the subway dancing around in a thong because he does not care what people think. You know, people will say, oh, I really like whatever, whoever, some business mogul or entrepreneur or something like that. But in reality, you know, we're all the same. We all get up in the morning and we go take a poop or whatever we do in the morning. And the person who doesn't care what people think throughout the day, that's the happy person. That's the person that I look up to and admire so much, is someone who's just like living fully their mission in life, unapologetically. And I think that's like the most beautiful thing you can do. So to try to answer your question more succinctly about, you know, what I've gone through to get to, I guess, where this place where I'm at, which I wouldn't say is, I wouldn't look at it and be like, oh, I'm in the best place ever, or I'm in the worst place ever. I would just say that I've learned a lot of things. And one thing that I've learned over and over and over again is that the more I care what people think, the slower I'll move, the more I'll question myself, the more I'll doubt myself. And the less I care what people think, the more fully alive I am, and the better I feel. Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting, because I think that is, so like my, I don't even know if I'd say background, but kind of background, at least when it comes to work professionally, like a lot of it is with social media. And, you know, you see a lot, you learn a lot when you're spending so much time, not just like getting the word out for different causes and organizations and programs on social media, but also just observing. And I mean, everyone, of course, is often putting out their best self. And so I think for me, it's so important to show that vulnerability and show like that not everything is perfect. I think that it's corny and maybe a cliche, but it's like, not that, you know, the imperfections make you perfect in a lot of ways, or at least recognizing that you have those. So like for me, that's definitely one of them, like realizing like not caring what other people think is so difficult. And we'll see. I don't know if that's important or not, but you know, I think you really got to the point of the fact that you're not at a peak of necessarily at the peak of your, you know, your professional experience, or at the peak of your life. Who knows what that would be, but you are doing awesome things, at least from my perspective. I know a ton of other people would say that. And so, you don't have to be, you don't need to see yourself as perfect in every way to be able to make contributions and make an impact in other people's lives.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And that's what Change Heroes was all about, right? And that's what Journey was all about. These two companies, the first one being the fundraising company, is like, you don't have to have it all figured out to actually make change in the world. You don't have to be Bill Gates or some super wealthy businessman to become a philanthropist. Here's the thing, is that everyone who's listening to this, unequivocally across the board, I think most likely without any exception whatsoever, has the ability to go out there and literally make a drastic impact. And I'm not saying you can go out there and you can make an impact like in a vague way. Anyone who's listening to this has the ability to definitely either fund a home or a school or a library or some girl scholarships or anti-sex trafficking work, whatever it is in the world that they're passionate about, and they could do that by the end of this week. And what I mean by that, and people a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know, I don't have any money, I don't have any rich friends. Here's the thing, is we have so much. We have everything we could ever want to enable us to leverage our social capital rather than our like monetary capital, right? And like Change Heroes, the first social good company I started, it was all about Matt getting 33 of his friends to give $3.33 a day, which is the price of a freaking latte, less than a latte, $3.33 a day for 3 months. Which adds up to 33 people, $3.33 a day for 3 months, adds up to $10,000. $10,000 is enough to build a school for kids that lack access to basic education in Kenya, Sierra Leone, Ghana, China, Ecuador, Haiti, India. I could send one email to an organization, to a nonprofit that I know that can build schools in all of those countries. You, Matt, you especially, you have the ability you could go out and raise $10,000 by the end of the day. You know what I mean? I know it sounds big, but I've seen it. We've mobilized 16,000 people in 80 countries all over the world to give. We've had 1.4 million donations, and that all happened from one person asking one other person to give $3.33 a day at a time for 3 months. And they would just get 33 of their friends to do it. I saw a 6-year-old raise $10,000. I saw a 9-year-old raise $10,000. And that's something aside. And like, people could be passionate about veterans rehabilitation or homelessness initiatives or whatever it is. You are literally one Google search away from finding an organization that you want to support. You are one Google search away from finding a really cool crowdfunding platform that you could actually take action. What inhibits us from making impact, what inhibits us from actually doing things, this is what I'm fascinated with, is that the linchpins, the real reasons people don't raise money is not because they're not passionate about a project. It's not because they don't have the time. It's not because it's not because anything aside from how they think they'll look in front of their friends, Matt. Let that sink in. That is the number one reason I saw over and over again. I have talked to thousands of people about raising money. Thousands. It was my life for 5 years.
Yeah.
The number one reason is that people are scared about how they're going to look in front of their friends. They're scared of failing. Okay? They're scared of launching that campaign to raise $5,000 to build a classroom in Guatemala, for example, and not hitting the goal. And so we, as a species or a society, or as whatever you want to call us, we are so held back by caring what other people think that we know, here's the thing. I know for a fact that I have the ability to go out right now. I could sit on Facebook for 3 hours and raise at least $3,000 and build a home for a family living in a slum in Colombia, for example, which we built 150 homes for families living in slums so far. And I know that. And so let's say I wasn't in this business and I knew that, and I would let, like, if I was the average person out there, I would let caring what someone else is going to think about me get in the way of that family having a house. Like, Matt, is that not a little bit fucked up? You know what I mean? Like, I'm scared of what you're going to think of me when I send you this message. Well, what will Matt say if I send him that mass message? Oh, I'm just not going to send it. Well, fuck that family. They're not going to have a house to sleep in tonight.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
This is, and Matt, we're not riffing and kind of spitballing and going, I think this is what holds people back. No, it's what holds people back. I've seen it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So the message that you're sending, like the underlying, there's so many layers to making impact, so many layers. And we always talk about the layer that is the end all layer. Well, we just don't make impact because it's hard, or it's because it's there's not the right nonprofit, when really the drivers are on a personal level. The drivers are like, how do I care what people think? Do you know what I mean? Does that
No,
make sense?
totally. And I think just building on that, it's so interesting because I definitely know when I'm like coming so close to making this about like me and what I've experienced personally, but it's interesting because what you're saying completely applies to me, like even with 180 degrees of impact. So speaking from my experience, where I'm focused on, okay, I'm having these conversations, and there's the side of it, which actually in a very real way with 180 degrees of impact is I'm having these conversations and I'm talking with you right now. And for me, first and foremost, it's having these conversations and learning from people and seeing the examples of people who are the doers, who are making a difference. But at the same time, I'm in the process of learning, okay, I'm seeing Taylor do it. I'm seeing all these other people do it. I could do, X, Y, Z. And actually, it's kind of funny because, like, as I'm doing 180 degrees of impact, there's always the thought of like, what do I ultimately want to accomplish? And I think, like, to tie it in with what you're doing and helping people tell their stories, I would imagine that a lot of that is helping them understand, like, what's their story, of course, but like, what's their vision for how they see themselves and what they want to accomplish? Like, what is that like, helping guide people toward a narrative for who they are and what they want to share with the world?
Yeah, I mean, and it's going back to those layers, like, or the thought of layers, is that we a lot of times we try to distill down and we say, well, what's your main motivation? Well, here's the thing: is you're not a single faceted human, right? There's so many layers to you as a human. There's a part of you, Matt, that needs to make money and to survive, to afford the fancy lamp that you have in the background there.
Oh yeah.
And there's a things that you need to survive. At some point, you're going to have a family if you don't already. And guess who's in charge of paying for that family? You and your partner, you and your wife, or whoever it is. And so you need to make money. And so it's so crazy that in the nonprofit world, a lot of times we'll be like, well, they should just be in it for impact. I got an email from this guy the other day that says, well, this just proves that you're only in it for the money. I help people, like, I'm on a mission to impact 1 billion people with positive messages through TEDx talks, right? So I help people get TEDx talks. I help them get on the stage. I help them deliver a ridiculously cool message. And I can help people get TEDx talks faster than anyone else could ever help them and get a TEDx talk in the world. I can say that with a lot of confidence. And yet, this guy's like, well, this proves that you're just in it for the money. And so I'm like, no. First of all, I'm not in it for one thing. I am in it to impact 1 billion people, and I'm in it to make a living so I can live in San Diego where I live. And I'm in it for me to feel good about what I'm doing. And I'm in it for that person who I'm helping get on that stage. And I'm in it for fun. And I'm in it for enjoyment. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's all of these things. I don't know why we look at things so kind of singular. I think that, Matt, I was did a speech for about 2,000 high school kids recently, and this kid comes up and he was dressed in this black suit with a white shirt and a black tie. So the kid's like 16 or something, and he's a full suit, and he comes up and he has this like furrowed brow, and he looks at me and he says, hey, a lot of people say I should be trying to make more impact. He's like, but to be honest with you, I really want to be a Wall Street trader. And I said, you go out there and you be the fucking best Wall Street trader there ever has been. Go make a bunch of money. I said, you see all these people around you that want to start nonprofits? He's like, yeah. I'm like, guess how nonprofits run? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, on donations. Guess who can give them the donations if you go and crush it in Wall Street? He's like, me? I'm like, yeah, you can fund all of these organizations. There's so many different parts. There's so many parts in the ecosystem of doing good, the ecosystem of impact. Personally, my spot in that ecosystem right now is in amplifying impactful messages. So if you wanted a TEDx talk and you have a profound, awesome idea and you could deliver it well, then we could work together and I could get you a TEDx talk, right? 3 years ago, my spot in that ecosystem was raising money. That's what I was good at. I was really good at selling real estate. I'm also really good at selling people on raising money. You know what I mean? So that's where I belonged. And that being said, Matt, I barely graduated high school. You know, I barely got through high school. So me being like the academic who's going to study all the different international development programs that have ever existed and come up with some sort of a new way to build more sustainable schools, that's not my spot in the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
Your spot in the ecosystem, amplifying messages, communication. That's your spot. My spot was raising money. If someone's listening to this and thinking, well, maybe I should start a nonprofit, chances are you shouldn't. You should find out what is your spot in the ecosystem of impact. What do you, and that all comes down to, what do you fucking love to do?
Yeah.
What would you love to do every single day? Like, you like having conversations, right, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah.
You like talking, you like learning from people. So that's what you should do better than anyone else in the world, period. You should do it better than Lewis Howes. You should do it better than anybody, Tim Ferriss. You should do it better than them, and because that's what you love to do.
Yeah.
And other people should do what they love to do. And you know what's crazy, Matt? I've seen it over and over again. It's so bananas, is that when you really focus on what you love to do more than anything else, you stop asking the question, what's going to make the most impact in the world? You start asking the question, how can I have the most fun?
Yeah.
You having the most fun will invariably end up in you making the most impact.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. And I think that's a great point. And I'll say, like, one thing I realized is, even as you were saying it, I had a reaction that reminded me of a reaction I had when someone said something to sort of similar to me years ago. And it was in, I wouldn't say, like 2013. And at the time I was a student here in DC at George Washington University. And I was on the team for one of the first TEDx Foggy Bottom events here in DC. And now it's a huge event, but at the time it was maybe 300 people. And you know, I'm standing there after the event and I'm having a conversation with one of the speakers, a guy by the name of Drew Dudley. And I don't remember specifically what we were talking about, but at one point he says something to me, and my instinctive reaction, the same one that I had as you were saying that, was almost like, it was almost like a you know, denying it, or almost saying like, no, I'm not that good, or I don't know if I could accomplish that thing. So how do you, I'm sure you're helping people get past that barrier. I guess a level of, it's a little bit of confidence in the way. It's like, again, embrace what they're good at, even if they do love it. Like, how do people get over that barrier in your opinion? How have you gotten over that when you've experienced that, if you've experienced that?
Yeah, I mean, not to use a super cliche example, finding out how to make a light bulb, but you know, what did they say? He tried it 10,000 times and it didn't work, and he figured out how to do it. I think the people that become the best in the world at what they do is not because they do all the smart things, it's because they do all the dumb things faster than the other people. Okay, they make all the mistakes faster than other people. When I got into firefighting, I was the youngest firefighter in Canada, which is where I'm from. And the reason for that is because I went out and I talked to more firefighters and people that were in charge of picking firefighters and interviews. I talked to more of them than I guaranteed more than anyone else who was trying to get a job at the time. And I went and I got interview coaching, I got counseling, I talked to every freaking person I could. I came up with answers to any interview question that could possibly be asked. I studied the aptitude test. I just did more of the stuff faster than anyone else. So I did in like 4 months what it would usually take someone 4 years to do, and therefore got hired really fast. And in real estate, it was the same thing. I would just get out of the car. So instead of like trying to learn by reading textbooks, I would literally walk in a neighborhood and I'd just knock on every single door. And I'd say, hey, are you thinking about buying or selling a house? And they'd go, beat it. And I'd walk away. And I'd say, hey, are you thinking about buying or selling a house? Then that turned into me just cold calling people. I would just call people on the phone nonstop until someone said, yes, I'm thinking about selling my place. Come and give me a price on it. Right. And so I would do that over and over again. That's the stuff that people won't do. So usually it'll take people like 5 years to build up an expertise at something. And then it was the same thing in speaking. You know, I did a TEDx talk as my first ever public speaking experience. And then I just sat there and I'd wake up every morning. I'd wear nothing but my boxers. I'd sit at my laptop and I would send that talk personally to like 50 people every single morning. Every single morning, over and over again. Hey, Matt, really good to meet you on the podcast. I just wanted to send you this TEDx talk, see what you think. If you like it, maybe spread it. If you don't, ignore I sent this to you. And, you know, goodbye. And so therefore, by the end of the month, I would be sending it to 1,500 people individually, right? If you do 50 a day times 30, that's 1,500 people. That shit adds up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so that's the thing. It's not the people that are the smartest or the quote unquote best in the world. The reason Lewis Howes is so successful and does such a phenomenal job on his podcast, I believe it's from his grit and determination as a football player, right? Like, he was a semi-pro, I think he was like an arena football player, professional arena football or something like that.
Yeah.
But the guy knows hard work. He knows how to grind and to get in there and just to like make stuff happen.
Yeah.
So the people that are wondering what, or maybe thinking, well, I don't know if it's possible for me to be the best in the world at that. If you put in more time than Tim Ferriss did for his podcast, you will have a better podcast than Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
If you put in more time than Lewis Howes did, you will have a better podcast because you will learn faster. Who is like one of the best interviewers, probably the best interviewer in the world, regarded by many, is Oprah. Right? Dude, I've never heard of anyone putting in the research and the upfront work into an interview than Oprah. She just does more than everyone. Will Smith just puts in more work than everyone, right? There's no fucking magic bullet with this stuff. It's like you just put in the time. And so the people that are and it ties right back to what we were saying at the beginning of our chat, is that the less that you care about what people think, the more able you are to make mistakes, because you're not worried about, looking like a fool or something like that. And the faster you make mistakes, the faster you learn, the faster you become the best in the world. It is whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
So in my mind, it all ties back to that. It's not like some people don't care what other people think and some people do. I think everyone does, but it's to a degree. Myself, I'm like a people pleaser aholic, like total people pleaser. Hate anytime someone sends me an email that's just like anything but awesome. I'm thinking about it for an hour. I'm trying to drop that. I'm working on dropping that, but you have to work through that. You have to decide what's more important. Is it more important for you, Matt, to be the best podcaster on the planet and impact millions and millions of people, maybe tens or hundreds of millions of people or a billion people with it? Or is it more important to you to save face and to not reach out and to not be embarrassed?
Yeah.
That's really the decision that it comes down to at the end of the day. In real estate, I had the decision: is it more important for me to be successful at this, or more important for me to not get a door slammed in my face? And I was like, it's more important for me to be successful. Fundraising, it's a fucking numbers game. If you want to raise $10,000, the first 33 people you reach out to, not all of them are going to say yes. But if you commit to reaching out to 100 or 200 or 1,000 people, which you can easily do on Facebook individually if you want, you're going to have that money raised in a night. It's the commitment. What's more important to you? Not looking like a fool, or caring what people think, or is it building a school for 1,000 kids?
Yeah. And I think the piece, what you're saying about doing what you love, is key to that, because like for me in 180 Degrees of Impact, I'm having all these conversations, and the name 180 Degrees of Impact is all about the origin story, going back to seeing people, especially if we look at social media and just how people talk about the world around them. There's a lot of anger and less action. And so my thought is, I want to show the people who are taking action and doing good things to make the world a better place. But the other piece of it is that with the 180, it's convenient to have it right here. But with the 180, my goal is to interview or have conversations with really 180 people. And that's the focus. And I think when you say that to someone, they're like, what? That's a lot of people. How are you going to talk with 180 people? And it's the sort of thing that's like, you kind of just need to do it, like borrowing from Nike, just do it. And you have to pursue what you at least feel you were meant to do. And for me, I will, by my math, I'll be done with my 180 people at the latest by 2020, probably a little bit sooner than that. But I think it's a matter of just kind of going for it. And you're a great example of that. But I think another thing I'm asking about is like just the idea of the pivot. Because you've mentioned a lot of these pivot points in the work that you're doing. I know a lot of social entrepreneurs or people who are interested in impact who are watching this are not necessarily doing the thing that they feel like they want to be doing, or they're not doing the thing that they want to do in 10 years or in 10 months. So how do you pivot between one thing and another? It's a big transition to go from firefighter to real estate guy to making an impact to making an impact in a different way. And so I'm wondering what has been your experience just at those pivot points? Because I feel like I've heard a lot about from you about the lows at those points, but I'm just wondering, how do you navigate that?
I mean, first of all, it's really about being in tune with yourself. It's being in tune with what you feel you're meant to do. And what you're meant to do is likely not going to come from other people. It's going to come from inside. People might give you an idea and you might resonate with it, but it's what is in your body, what's a big fuck yes to you, right? So, and I've seen a lot of people get really wrapped up in trying to plan 30 years out. Yeah. They're trying to figure out what their life's work is at the age of 25. That's not what your 20s are for. Your 20s are not for finding out what your life's work is. Your 20s are for making mistakes, doing a whole bunch of different random stuff, figuring it out. And then in your 30s, maybe start narrowing it down. And in your mid 30s, which I'm in right now, then now it's time to step into my life's work. I'm 36, right? But it's like, I really love the thought of embracing the phase that you're in. So embracing the phase that you're in, and that could be if you're 21 or 22 and you're going to university, or you're just about to finish up at university, do not be thinking about 15 years from now when you want to be, having the white picket fence and 2 cars and 2.5 kids or whatever it is. Yeah. Think about having the most fun you can possibly have at university. Enjoy those years fully. Then if you're going to take a year off, enjoy that fully. Or then if you're going to I think this in every area of life. Like when I was your age, 26, what was I doing at 26? I was in real estate, and I think at the time I was like, I don't want to have a long-term relationship. I want to be able to date different people and learn. Yeah. And so that's what I did fully. I was fully in that phase. And then when you move into a phase of wanting to date someone full-time, you're fully in that phase, not this like 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I mean that in every respect. So when I was in firefighting, I freaking loved it. I loved firefighting. I was so into it. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I want to be able to make more money than this. I was making, $48,000 a year or something like that, Canadian, which is like $10 US, but 48, whatever it is, like 48 grand a year. And decided I need to be able to make more money than this to support a family and stuff. So I literally read a book that said, 90% of the world's millionaires are millionaires through real estate. And so I thought, I guess I'll just take up real estate because that's what I want to do, is make more money. That's where I'm going to learn. Took up real estate, just dove into it fully, embraced it fully. I wasn't thinking about, well, what am I going to do in 5 years? What am I going to do? No, I just dove into it so hard. I'm like, I'm going to be the best freaking realtor that this town has ever seen, and it went good. I was within the top 1% of realtors in North America because I went crazy for it. You know what I mean? I wasn't 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And then at some point, these transition points, they happen. You don't have to worry. Are they going to happen? They're going to freaking happen. We're human beings. We evolve. And so then when the time came where I was like, wow, I'd really love to make more of an impact. I'd really love to be giving. I'd really love to have that feeling of contributing to other people's lives. Then I went into that fully. There's a transition period of phasing out of real estate and getting into that, but then being 100% into that. And that lasted for 5 years, or I guess 7 years in total. And now I'm just going crazy for the TEDx stuff. And you know what? I probably won't be doing this TEDx stuff in 5 years from now. I'll still have the company. It'll be running. It'll be going great. Yeah. But in 5 years, maybe writing a book. I'm actually really into healing modalities like sound healing and Reiki and these things I find so fascinating. So in 5 years from now, we'd be having a very different podcast, or interview, I should say video interview. But right now I'm fully into TEDx, and that's what I suggest people do is stop thinking about 15 years from now. You don't even know what you're going to be doing 2 years from now. Think about what lights you up right now. Yeah. And do that.
Yeah. And I think it's cool because you could kind of see some things down the line. You could kind of, you mentioned a book, and one of the things for me with 108 Degrees of Impact is actually sharing more of the insights that I'm learning. That's the cool thing about having all these conversations, because then you could say, hey, I talked to all these people and here's what they said about, this aspect of making an impact, or, I can help other people create their own impacts with a lot of the insights that I'm hearing from people I'm talking with. So I think that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, you know, for me, a lot of I think another cool thing about 180 Degrees of Impact is specifically talking with all of the people I'm talking with. Really, there's a level of inspiration there. And I'm wondering, who do you look to for inspiration? Like who are the people who are most inspiring you at this point?
You know, like I said earlier, I love when people are just fully alive and they're fully them. People I really look up to right now, I really like Preston Smiles.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the stuff that he puts out into the world. I love Lewis Howe's content. I love Jay Shetty's content. I've always loved Tim Ferriss's content, Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
You know, these are guys that are all really different from each other, yet they're very similar in that in a lot of ways they're fully them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they're fully embracing who they are. Like Tim Ferriss is just a total geek. The guy is just the biggest nerd, and he owns that. And because he owns it, he's the fucking coolest guy out there.
Yeah.
Because he fully owns it. He's fully like, yeah, I experimented like all these things, and everyone loves it because he's just like fully letting his crazy like spreadsheet journal driven mind run the show, and he's helped millions and millions and millions of people. Or you know what, if I should say one person who absolutely inspires me to no end, it's Wim Hof. And Wim Hof, I don't know if you heard of him, he's called the Iceman. He is incredible dude. He swims underneath like ice in Antarctica. He climbed Everest in a pair of board shorts. Okay, he climbed Everest in a pair of board shorts, bro. Wow. Like the guy is, they call him the Iceman. He's figured out, well, I don't figured out. He's felt out, or whatever it is, that he can sit in an ice bath. You could fill your shower up with ice, and you could stick him right in the middle of it, and his skin temperature would not drop, because he has that much control over his inner functions of his body. Yeah. And so that's inspiring. It's inspiring that he climbed Everest. But what is the most inspiring, I had the opportunity to spend a couple of days with him in just outside Amsterdam where he lives, and him and his family. And I got to see who he was, not teaching the retreat, not doing the breathing techniques, not doing the ice bath and stuff like that. And that guy, from the moment he wakes up till the moment he goes to bed, he is fully present, he is fully alive, and he is fully him. Yeah. There's no filter. Yeah. You know, like I remember we woke up one morning and he's sitting in his hallway with a guitar. He never wears shoes. He's with a guitar and he's just singing in the hallway, just sitting on the ground in the hallway, like basically on the way out, like the mud room, you know, like when you come in the door, probably the most uncomfortable place to sit in the house, but he just felt like sitting down and singing. So he felt down and sang, sat down and sang. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like those are the people that I love, is like people that aren't like continually striving to just like do the next big thing. They're fully present and fully themselves. Yeah. And in that, you know, if I know I'm kind of rambling here for a second here, Matt, but you know, I feel like some of the best advice I ever read was by Eckhart Tolle in his book, A New Earth. And it says, he talks about having an inner purpose and an outer purpose. And I think us as a society, especially in this like entrepreneurial ambition fest that we've got going on as a culture right now, that we mix those two up. We think that we only have one purpose, which is 180 degrees of impact. That's my only purpose. It's not. That's your outer purpose. Your inner purpose is peace. Your inner purpose is presence. Yeah. Your inner purpose is enjoying this moment. Yeah. You know, and if we get too wrapped up, and I'm speaking from, you know, having 10, 15 years of experience, not doing it the right way, doing it the way of like fully thinking I am my company, and only if my company's doing good am I happy. Yeah. Learning from that and going, wait a second, my inner purpose is peace. My inner purpose is to like enjoy every moment. You know, my outer purpose right now is getting people TEDx talks, and I freaking love it, and I'm embracing it. And my inner purpose right now, even as we're talking, I'm feeling into my body the whole time, going, okay, how does this feel? Are you good being this excited right now, Taylor? Yeah. Okay, good. Go for it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And only doing the stuff that's in alignment with how I feel, because that's my inner purpose. It's like full peace no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I could see that, and that resonates a lot with me, even more, especially as I go along like the 180 degrees of impact journey, just having these conversations and living my life otherwise. Because it was exactly a year ago that I just started putting out these video interviews and doing video interviews for 100 Degrees of Impact. But I started at the start of 2017 as a blog writing about people, and then in March of 2017 my dad passed away, and that was like a huge challenge that still like affects my life and work and everything, in terms of just finding that balance and figuring out how to navigate that, and also grieve and you know, I don't want to say deal with, but like really live in and feel like grief, because it's important to feel these things and to navigate with them and carry them, and not like stuff them under the bed or in the dresser drawer, or, you know, whatever it is. And so for me, I found so much peace, especially in like taking that part of me and then integrating it into my narrative. And now I think as I'm slowly getting, you know, with each year, I'm kind of seeing how all the different pieces of me tie together into one consistent narrative. And I think it is important to also, I think it's actually so important in our culture now to like embrace and share those pieces that for the most part people want to, again, stuff under the bed and hide. And then they, you know, you want to post the smiling selfies and the smiling pictures, but you don't necessarily want to post the things that are darker, or like the negatives that people are often you know, ashamed by, or that are often stigmatized by society. And so I mean, I'm really inspired by the fact that you've balanced that so well, and that like you own your successes and you own your failures, and it's just you. And I think that's a good lesson that people could learn in, you know, watching this conversation, really in taking in anything that you put out there, which thankfully you put out a lot. And I like a final question I have, because I feel like we could go on forever and I could ask you so much. I want to know just, I'm assuming you don't have maybe a definite answer for this yet, and the answer will definitely change as time goes on. But, you know, looking at the legacy that you want to have, at least as you see it now, if your life were a book or documentary, I'm wondering what would the title of that be and why? And I think a documentary would be a lot more interesting, because then we could get like the clips of the firefighter days, we could get the bodybuilding days, we could get the real estate days, we get it all in there. So what would the title of that be and why?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you sent that to me in an email to think about before or not, but I didn't.
I feel like everyone has that same reaction with that question. It's a tough one, but interesting.
I think I think it's a similar title that I think potentially a lot of people would have, and it would be, I would say, like running away from and to presence. So in my experience, even being a firefighter and doing the real estate and a lot of even the philanthropic work was running toward what I thought would be happiness. You know, doing some things that I thought would fill me up, only to realize that they wouldn't, only to realize that every goal wasn't changing my inner state. It was for maybe a short time. Yeah, I did it, you know, good, pride, that kind of thing. But it wasn't really change. It wasn't really giving me the feeling that I didn't even know I wanted, which was presence, which is like being here. And, you know, I think that's what we all want at the end of the day. Sure, we say we want a lot of money and we want a nice car and all that kind of stuff, but it's really the feelings behind those that we want, right? And if we really got down to it, most people are going to say, "Well, I just want to be happy." And I think if you boiled happy down even more, it would be even deeper than fulfilling or spending time with family or feeling loved. I think it would be feeling like at one, feeling in alignment, feeling peace. And the crazy / awesome thing about this world that we live in, this universe that we're existing in right now, is that the rules are really clear. When you feel that, when you feel peace and you feel at one and you feel in alignment, then all the external stuff kind of happens on its own accord, right? Then you get the money and the car and all that kind of stuff. But if you have the feelings of, I just want to do that and then I'll feel something better, then you'll just continue to get more. If only I had that, then I would feel this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like that would be my, if I'm looking at my life from afar and I like looked at my 20s, I'd be like, oh, there's Taylor running, searching for a feeling, even though he had it inside himself the whole time. He just didn't know how to access it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like that's the fun. Maybe the cool thing to end on too, Matt, is like we started out by going through this cool highlight reel of like, oh yeah, you know, successful real estate and da da da. It's like, really, let's think about what were those things fueled by?
Yeah.
Why? To
Yeah.
be honest, I would much more admire and look up to the person that didn't think that they had to chase after those things
Yeah.
to feel fulfilled and saw the perfection that they are
Hmm.
and saw the limitlessness
Yeah.
of themselves and didn't care what people thought and all of that kind of stuff. That's the kind of person that I look up to. I think it just so happens that the human experience, for me anyways, and it seems like a lot of other people, entails us trying a bunch of different things out to learn that lesson
Hmm.
first. And a
Yeah.
lot of us, as you've seen, and as you've seen, I'm sure, is like a lot of people get to the age of 70 and 80 and 90 and they die never learning that it was inside them the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's an awesome point, because I mean, I still think, a lot of the experiences that you've had or that you've manifested for yourself, however you want to look at that, just point to, I think they're like an outer expression of a lot of what you've shared on in this conversation about experiencing different things and pivoting and all of that. But at the same time, like if someone says to me, oh, that's like, whatever you're doing, whatever the specific thing might be, it might be 180 degrees of impact. That's really cool. I often think to myself, well, that's what I'm deciding to do, but that doesn't make the fact that you're not doing what I'm doing any less important, cool, impactful, like, critical to who you are. And so I think that's a good point. We do, especially here in Washington D.C. Like people ask, like, what do you do all the time? And it's all about like, what's your job title and all that stuff. And I think it's important to look beyond that to who people are. And I'm glad that I could get to know more of who you are and what you're up to, like in here, not just in terms of what you're putting out there into the world.
And you know what, Matt? People that ask you what you do, and if that's what's important to them, that means that they judge themselves on what they do, right? And so they're looking for a base of comparison. So it's like if someone asks me what I do too early in the conversation, I always just make up some absurd job. Like one time I said I import all the ayahuasca for all of the shamans in Northwestern North America. And they're like, what? I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, just made up some random stuff. Or sometimes I tell people I'm in the keychain business and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I've got a huge keychain conglomerate.
Yeah.
And just, if they ask too early. But anyways, I think that's a really interesting thing worth noting is that if you go deeper, if someone says, what do you do? What they're asking is, am I as good as you?
Yeah.
And if they're asking you that because they're asking themselves that. They don't know if they're good enough themselves. So it seemed like the theme was like caring what people think in this conversation. And to that end, I think we should both go out there and wear our thongs on the subway and dance or do whatever we need to do to get over caring what people think.
That's exactly what I was planning on doing after anyway. But for anyone who wants to learn more about all that you're up to, what you have to share, because I think there's a lot of wisdom there, and I'm sure people would love to kind of tap into that even more. Where should they look to learn more about you, Taylor?
My name's Taylor Conroy. It's nice. It's a unique name, so you can Google it, and there's a bunch of articles, or you can go to taylorconroy.com. Right now, that gives you a free list of TEDx talks that are coming up over the next year, a global list of TEDx talks that you can apply for on taylorconroy.com. And otherwise, see me on YouTube and social media. It's Taylor A. Conroy on Instagram, Taylor A. Conroy, and let's connect.
Awesome. And again, I'm really thankful for this. This is a lot of fun, as everyone can probably tell just by watching. But I mean, what I'm going to say to you and to the 180 Degrees of Impact audience as I wrap up, and I say at the end of each and every one of these conversations, is keep impacting and keep up the great work, because it's making a big difference.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Ditto, Matt. Right back at you. Thank you, I receive it. Appreciate
Awesome
you, dude.
stuff.
Thanks for having me.